Have a car,
need a car,
or just occasionally bum a ride with friends.
You've come to the right place.
Join Jill and Tom as they break down everything that's going on in the auto world.
New car reviews,
Shopping tips,
driving green,
electric cars,
classic cars,
and plenty of great guests.
This is the Consumer Guide Car Stuff Podcast.
All right, this is the Consumer Guide Car Stuff Podcast. I am Tom Appel. Thanks for joining us today. When you get a chance, do me a big favor. Check us out at consumerguide.com. While you're there, check out our Best Buy picks. If you're shopping for a new car, the Best Buy pick list is super handy. Also, you can listen to back episodes of the podcast right there on our homepage, though you should subscribe. You should subscribe, share it with as many friends as you have. You should leave really positive comments. And if you have any observations about my relationship with Jill, you should comment on those as well. That's gone, by the way.
Oh, is it?
So whoever it was wrote that heard us and like, I don't want any part of this.
Took it out because, okay, so by the way, what we're referencing is the fact that somebody said it didn't seem like I liked Tom.
Right.
So for several weeks there, I was like, by the way, Tom, I like you.
Yeah. That's not creepy at all.
No.
She is Jill Ciminillo. She is a North American Car of the Year juror.
Yeah.
She is editor-in-chief, managing editor of Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk, and apparently she does freelance stuff.
Apparently.
All right. We have a huge week of things to do here.
Yes.
You drove the Lincoln Nautilus.
I did.
Big changes there. It's all new, right?
It is.
So we're going to get to that in a moment. Later on in the show, we have David Schneider, Vice President of Portfolio Management for Harman International. If that doesn't sound interesting, I assure you it is. Harman is the company that owns and licenses and presumably controls everything about premium audio in a lot of vehicles. So brands that aren't Bose, basically, are Harman brands.
Okay.
For the most part.
Okay.
They have a huge portfolio of brands. We're going to talk about that and talk about premium audio.
Awesome.
Which I care about deeply.
And yeah, I'm not so good with.
I'm not really an audiophile because I don't really know about the technical stuff.
Right.
I just like the end product.
You just like listening to things.
Yeah, I'm from the 80s when we still used words like tweeter and subwoofer, which I'm sure is still being used, but not as much.
Well, I thought that tweeter was now X.
Whoa.
Sorry.
Well, I don't think so.
Sorry. Making a joke there.
So a lot of stuff happened.
It did.
We're going to go through a bunch of news real fast. Are you ready?
You go.
I didn't even ask you. How are you, Jill?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm busy.
Yep. You know what? So am I. I feel like my head is still spinning from the travel I've done in the last 3 weeks, but thankfully I'm home for the next couple.
I'm going to show you something, and this will be why I'm busy. Do you know what this is?
It's a receipt.
From Spunky Dunkers.
Okay.
Do you know what my accountant hates?
Spunky Dunkers?
Receipts from Spunky Dunkers.
Got it.
And yet I've got to get all these into quick and really fast.
Oh. Okay.
So that's part of why I'm busy.
Just so you know, all of my tax stuff has already been sent to my
accountant. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. My family, my private stuff is done.
Okay.
The consumer guide stuff, not so
done.
much. Yeah.
Not done.
Big news.
Okay.
Fisker.
Yes.
We've been talking about Fisker lately.
We have.
Because they're kind of on the ropes.
Yes.
And today they stopped production.
Womp womp.
That is bad.
Yeah.
So we don't know if they're stopping production to regroup and see what cash they have, or this is the end of the line for Fisker. It would make me profoundly sad if this was it, because they got as far as building vehicles.
Yeah, they did.
Kind of interesting vehicles.
Yeah.
And they had other vehicles coming.
Yes.
So they got a midsize crossover, or not a compact crossover. They're going to do a small, really affordable crossover, and then they were going to do the Alaska pickup.
Yep.
All of which were cool looking.
Mm-hmm.
Henrik Fisker's a designer.
Yeah. And they were partnering with other automakers to put these out.
Well, this is where this story gets interesting. Nissan was going to throw them a lifeline.
Yep.
Give them $500 million for access to the Alaska pickup.
Right.
But Nissan just announced with Honda that those guys might be shaking hands and developing EVs moving forward.
Yep.
But we don't know what that means.
Yep.
There's been all sorts of writing about this agreement, and yet the two have said almost nothing about what the agreement means, other than they're looking into ways that they can work together cooperatively.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're going to see a lot of these partnerships moving forward because, you have like the Teslas and the Rivians that are all electric, but then you have these, old school automakers who have dabbled in electric, but they're trying to figure out a way forward, for an electric future. And it's really tough to switch gears. It's really tough.
Yeah, and Honda and Nissan, neither one of them is an especially large major automaker. Mm-hmm. They're not Toyota big. They're not Ford big. They're not Hyundai Kia big. So if they can develop some stuff, they used to call them black parts, but the parts you don't see on cars, if they can develop those together, that's a big money saver.
Yeah, it is.
And it looks like volumes moving forward are not going to be as big as soon. So there's less chance to basically make the money back in a hurry. So cooperations, as you noted, we're going to be seeing more of these.
Yep.
All right, there was that piece of news. The Chevy Blazer, I think you saw this piece of news, the EV, back on sale.
Okay.
That was a software issue. They seem to have corrected the software issue. You can now buy a Chevy EV, a Blazer EV, at a huge discount. They knocked $6,000 off the price.
Okay.
And it qualifies for the tax credit.
So essentially, like $1,300 off. If
$13,000.
$13,000, yeah.
Yeah.
If you want to opt for that vehicle, and one thing I just want to make a quick note of. Previously, when we had the tax credits, it was a tax credit. It was something that you had to put on your taxes at the end of the year.
Yes.
And now there are ways that you can have that money become a down payment on your vehicle, so you can see that up front rather than waiting for the vehicle. At the end of the year.
Yes, and I shouldn't call it a tax credit because that's really not what it is anymore.
Yeah.
It's really just a rebate from the government. And yes, to your point, dealers who are in the system and set up to do this, and that should be most dealers that sell EVs, you get the money at the time of purchase.
Yeah.
And that money can be applied like a rebate to lower the amount you finance and to reduce the tax you pay on the vehicle because you're lowering the taxable subtotal. So, yes, it's good for everyone, assuming the system works.
Yeah, and I have heard there have been some problems, some
Yes.
glitchy things that are going on with the dealers trying to get signed up and putting people in the system for the credit and that kind of stuff.
It is shocking to me that a brand new system set up by the government doesn't work super well right away.
Shocking. Completely crazy.
All right, we got to get to your review pretty quickly, but I want to talk about two cars I just drove.
Okay.
For a bunch of reasons. One, I finally got into the Defender.
Okay.
The Land Rover Defender.
Yep.
So I drove a Defender 110S. So that's the four-door, the shorter of the four doors.
Yep.
There are three models, a 90 and a 130 also. I like this vehicle way more than I anticipated liking it.
Okay.
It kind of seems silly to me, right? It's got its almost cartoonish, blocky good looks. It seems unnecessary, but it really rides well. The cabin is really spacious. It's very refined. It is $85,000, but the stereo, Meridian, very good. We'll be talking about that later. But I think the thing that shocked me most about it was the drivetrain. This is the inline six-cylinder turbocharged mild hybrid. There's a lot of things going on there,
right?
And a lot of reasons why it wouldn't be smooth, except it is smooth,
right?
Yeah. You got a turbo, you got a mild hybrid, and yet nice.
Good.
And the best part is my fuel economy. Take a guess.
18.
19. Almost 20. I think it was 19.9. That's great mileage for something that weighs this much and has this much power. It
is very large. It's been a few years since I've driven the 110, but I seem to remember having some warm fuzzies about it.
Yeah, I like it. There's actually nothing here. What's weird? It's eclectic. It's quirky, and you might not like it. But the rear hatch doesn't hinge at the top; it hinges at the sides, so it opens like a door.
Yeah.
On the curb side in America, so that's a little weird. I don't hate it for any reason.
No, I mean, it just, if you live in a city, it's a little bit more difficult. Like if you're parallel parked on the street, like you got to leave enough space to be able to get that open. If you're in a garage, you may have to pull in rather than back in so that like your garage door is open and then you can open it. So, I mean, it does create some unique challenges.
You have rallied. Is there some rally off-road reason for this?
What do you mean?
For having the door open at the sides?
No, not that I would be aware of. I do have a couple of friends who actually competed last year in the Revel Rally in the Defender 130, and they placed like 6th place overall. They did really well.
Huh.
But yeah, so I would have to ask them if they know if there's a preference for why it would be to the side or going up.
The old Lexus GX, which was based on an International architecture, also had that door like that.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if there's some weird off-roady, heavy-duty reason for that.
No, I mean, frankly, I would prefer the traditional liftgate because it provides shade. Like, a lot of rallying is done in the desert.
Yeah.
And so, it's hot, you're sweaty, there's a lot of sun, and the one thing that you need to do is conserve your energy and find shade all the time. And so I would very much prefer it to go up just for the shade, frankly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. So Defender, I'm going to be writing a full review of this in a couple of weeks, but I was pleasantly surprised.
Okay.
Liked it a bunch. I just drove the Taos. That's
Yes.
Volkswagen's
Which we
subcompact
have
crossover.
previously dinged.
Yes, and you know what? I had a very different set of experiences this time.
Okay.
Though I don't like it a whole lot more than before. This is Volkswagen's subcompact
Right.
crossover. It's very attractive looking. I think it's got a very modern, chic interior. Makes very good use of space. Someone said it was expensive, but I drove a top-line model with all-wheel drive that came to $35.
That's not bad.
No, I drove an SEL, so that's what cars cost these days. I don't think that's expensive. So here's the good news. It handles very well.
Yes.
It's got plenty of power.
Yep.
And everything I just mentioned. It's a pretty classy-looking car inside and out. Downside is, and I don't remember this from before, the ride was incredibly stiff.
No, I remember that. And my biggest problem with it when I drove it, and it's been a couple of years, was the transmission.
Yeah, it's still a problem. It's better.
Okay.
And I reached out to Volkswagen, and they said they didn't update anything for this year,
Right.
but it feels better.
Okay.
It's still not good. And what we're talking about is the dual clutch automatic transmission that comes with all-wheel drive. Dual clutch is a sportier way to handle shifting. It's really based more on a manual transmission than an old school automatic. And what you get are shifts that are crisper, quicker, more responsive.
In theory.
In theory, right. Right, because this transmission does too much business at low speed.
Yeah.
And it's not exactly clunky,
It's clunky.
but it's more.
I'm like, I'll call it clunky.
But the speed changes are erratic and not predictable, and it's not smooth.
Yeah. And I will say, I drove the Atlas CrossSport recently and did not have that experience at all. So there's certainly something different as they are leveling up in their SUVs. And that was pleasant to drive.
Yeah, the Atlases use a conventional 8-speed.
Yeah.
It's not dual clutch.
Yeah.
The other problem I've had with every Volkswagen product is the infotainment system. And this one was strangely better. In that, like, the last time I drove a Volkswagen product, the infotainment system never showed a picture of the album I was listening to.
Okay.
Often would just change what I was listening to, or would not respond to inputs to change what I wanted to do.
Right.
And you couldn't advance to the next song, even though there's a button for that on the steering wheel.
Right.
Like, what the heck? It was terrible. This was better, but the actual information on the screen still trailed by 30 seconds to 90 seconds what was actually being played.
Okay, that's
Which
annoying.
it's very annoying.
And it was through wireless CarPlay?
This is through Bluetooth.
Bluetooth. Yeah, so wireless.
Bluetooth using their Bluetooth connection, not using CarPlay.
Okay, so not using CarPlay, but a wireless connection.
Yes, and I suspect, and I have this car for another 18 hours, I should try CarPlay.
Yes.
Because it probably works better.
It could be.
Because I believe all that software overlays the existing stuff. All right, so but I did like the car better. Also, my fuel economy, again, almost 30.
Okay.
So that's really good mileage.
Yeah, for a small
So,
SUV,
I mean, drive this vehicle. It rides and handles great. The interior is nice, really roomy, but it's got some downsides. So you just want to go on a long test drive.
Yeah.
So my opinion of it's up a little.
Okay, that's good.
Not a bad vehicle. But you just drove.
Yes, I did.
Tell us what you just drove.
The 2024 Lincoln Nautilus. And so this is all new for the model year.
All new.
So refreshed design, lots of new technology. And the biggest change, I would say, is that 48-inch screen that goes from the driver's side all the way to the passenger side. And I have had so many questions about whether or not this is distracting. And I'm going to tell you it is not.
Here's the thing about that, and I don't want to cut you off, but like Ram and next generation Ram and the Wagoneer now, Grand Wagoneer, they have a screen in front of the
passenger screen, right.
This is sort of an advancement of that, where you have a contiguous screen that goes literally from window to window.
Yes. So on the Ram, Stellantis, Jeep vehicles, your passenger screen is going to not be visible by the driver. So the driver is sitting in the driver's seat and they look over to that passenger screen and they can't see it. That is not the case with the Nautilus.
Okay.
So what happens is you essentially have like 6 modules. that go on from the driver to the passenger side. And the first 3 are all going to be very driver focused: your speedometer, your driver assist technology, and your map.
So your old school instrument panel is your old school instrument panel.
Yeah. And it just, the way that you have a flat top, flat bottom steering wheel so that you look over the steering wheel at this cluster. And it operates in some ways like a head-up display. But the information is literally right there in front of you. It is static. It does not change. You do have some theme changes that you can implement, but the location of the data doesn't change. Then you have 3 modules over in front of the passenger side, which
so just basically continuing to the right, which have some flexibility of what you can put in those spaces. But none of that information and none of the things that you can put in there is going to be like movable, distracting information. So you can't put a movie in one of those modules. So your passenger cannot be watching a movie on that screen while somebody is driving. So the things that you can put in there are weather. You can put in your fuel economy. You can put a clock in there. You can put your trip information. So it's just static information that you can and you can change. Like I said, there's only 7 options, and none of them are flashy, ooh, look at me, squirrely kind of stuff. It's static information. So I didn't find it distracting. And the way they have it designed is it's just below the hood line. So it doesn't even pop up over your hood. So you have really good visibility out the front, and it isn't distracting. It's just kind of like you dip your eyes down and then back up again. So speaking of information, you have all this information to the right of the IP. Do you find any of it useful? The weather, I did. Okay. We were driving in the mountains a little bit. It's funny. I had to leave Chicago to see snow this year in California. I saw snow in California, not Chicago. But we were up in the mountains, and and all of a sudden it got really cloudy, and we're like, and you just kind of look down at the weather, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's going to be snowing in 10 minutes. Got it. So I did find that information useful. Obviously the clock is useful if you care about time, which I do, and then your fuel economy information. But overall, the screen aside, I think that's the biggest thing that people are going to ask questions about. But the screen aside, I feel like it was just a very smooth driving vehicle. It was very comfortable. It had we were driving, obviously. And that's Lincoln's new thing. They're not chasing sporty. No. So they're not going after BMW or Mercedes. Nope. More Genesis-like, really. I would say Genesis, Lexus are they're going to be their bigger competitors. And, because they're going after this calm, quiet experience. You shut the doors and you're just kind of like entombed, entrenched in quietness. And it's quite lovely. It's this, and the top tier trims that we were in had the 24-way perfect position seats. So seat massaging, heated seats. And they have a new feature that's going to be available towards the end of this year. So it's not on models that are coming out right now, but they'll be available for an over-the-air update at the end of the year, and then it will be on 2025 models. But it's kind of like a rejuvenate feature. So that's not available right now? No. Because I still have my bottle of Mystic Woods. Now that is available. You can do the scent. I still have my bottle of that as well. Okay, I thought that was incorporated in the rejuvenate. It is, but so you have the scent feature, which you can have 3 scents, and then you can you can spritz the scent into the cabin at any time. But the rejuvenate feature, what that does is it incorporates the scent as well as the seat massages and reclining and music, and then that 48-inch screen gets a little bit of a mood theme. But the idea is you pull into your driveway. Crazy stuff. You pull into your driveway, you're like, you have to go into like dinner and chaos at home, and you're not quite ready to do that. So you pull into your driveway, you hit the rejuvenate button, you can set 10 minutes on the rejuvenate before you go into chaos, and it will relax your seat, turn on the seat massagers, have the aromatherapy in the cabin, and this is very Genesis. Calm and soothing music. But then after 5 minutes, then the music changes, the theme changes, whoa. It's the scent changes. Picking the music for you? Yeah. Oh, I would never relax. Well, you could pick the music, but it starts out calming, and then it raises your seat a little bit, and then kind of wakes you up. It was an interesting experience. I could totally see a use case for it. Wow. So a couple of big points about this car now. It's now made in China. Yes. And part of the thing about that is I have no quality issues with that whatsoever. Mm-hmm. General Motors' highest quality vehicle is the Envision, built in China. Also made in China. So don't worry about foreign or domestic brand vehicles made in China,
No.
probably higher quality than domestically built vehicles. Yeah. So not an issue. But the reason I mentioned China is because they have to pay a tariff to bring this vehicle in. So they had to add luxury to kind of offset that cost, and the prices are way up.
Well, but, even so, the base price of entry into this vehicle is like $50,000. And when you talk about the average transaction price for a vehicle these days being $48,000, that's up, but it's not crazy up.
It's not crazy up, but it's about $6,000 more than the old car.
Yeah.
But you do get all-wheel drive standard.
Yep.
And you get a 2-liter turbo, 250 horsepower, or the hybrid.
Yeah, which we did not test. The hybrid is not out yet.
They're going to do that separately, probably.
Yeah.
And maybe it's a little less smooth, so they don't.
But the gas engine really smooth.
Yeah. So 250 horse is plenty. Standard all-wheel drive. So
I'm like, wait a minute, I have to think about that. We did drive the hybrid. Never mind. Scratch that. Reverse it. Very smooth.
Okay.
I'm like, it's been 3 programs ago. I'm like, what did I drive?
And they still offer the insane black label.
Yeah, they do. And that's like $75,000.
Yeah, that's a lot of stuff. Plus,
it's
there's a bunch of concierge services included in that. Like when you go back to the dealer, they will treat you better than other people.
Yeah.
Which is appealing.
It is appealing for like $25,000 more, right?
Good looking car. I wanted to mention something real quick we were talking about the instrument cluster and the digital display. There is a separate tablet style screen, right?
Yes.
Above the console.
Yes.
So that is still there.
Yeah, but so what's really cool is that will never show your map. Your map is always going to be on the display. And so what you will see, and what I like about that is your Apple CarPlay, your music, that kind of stuff can appear on that, and it doesn't interfere with anything else.
You know, we didn't talk about, because you wouldn't talk about this, but I would, Revel audio.
Right.
Awfully good. It's awfully good in other vehicles. I don't know if I've heard it. I don't think when I first met the static reveal of the Nautilus, I don't think I heard the stereo.
Right,
but I expect good things.
So do I. Although I'm not the audiophile. To me, music is just background noise. So I'm not the person to ask about that. Sorry.
Man.
Wait until I have it at home, and my husband will have comments.
All right, we were going to talk about the wacky Ram 1500 Classic.
Right.
Which is a 2-generation-old Ram that Ram is still quietly, secretly selling.
Yep.
We'll get to that next week.
Okay.
All right, we should take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk to David Schneider of Harman International. Stick around.
Questions or comments?
Drop us a line at carstuff@consumerguide.com.
That's carstuff@consumerguide.com. Welcome back to the Car Stuff Podcast.
All right, we're back. I'm Tom. She's Jill. This is the Car Stuff Podcast. Jill, how's it going?
It is going well.
I've just noticed you haven't had a donut yet.
I have not. I'm trying to decide if the green is like minty, if it's left over from, I'm sure it's left over from yesterday, but...
No, they made them today.
Okay.
I think it's a March flavor.
It's a March theme. Do we think that's like mint chocolate chip
I'm
then?
almost sure it is.
Okay. So I like mint chocolate chip.
Yeah, have a donut. I'm having a donut today, but I don't care which one I get. So 2 mint, 1 chocolate. Randy has declined to pick one yet. Producer Randy. I just want to remind people real quick, if they want to follow me on Twitter, they should absolutely do that. I am Car Guy Tom on Twitter. Jill, you're taking a picture of the donuts?
I am.
All right. Now, we were just talking about car audio.
Yes.
We were just talking about the Revel system in the new Lincoln Nautilus.
Yes.
Which happens to be one of the Harman brands.
Okay.
We should talk to the guy at Harman who can probably tell us the most about premium car audio. He is the Vice President of Portfolio Management at Harman International. Welcome to the Car Stuff Podcast, David Schneider. David, how's it going?
Hi, everybody. It's going well. Glad to be here. And I'll just talk about donuts. I'm looking around for mine, and I'm missing it. It must have fallen on the floor or something, but I'll look in the mail.
We once attended
a meeting.
Any
insight I can give you guys?
Jill and I once attended a meeting. I think it was a Hyundai meeting during the COVID lockdown. That was supposed to be a lunch meeting. Obviously, it wasn't because of COVID. And Hyundai sent us pizzas. It's like, holy cow, that's inclusive. I'm not that organized, David. I would never think to get a donut out to you in time, so I apologize.
That's okay. It's no problem at all.
Do me a favor.
And I heard you talking about the Revel system on the Nautilus.
Yes, I'm very impressed by it. But do us a favor first. Tell us about Harman International and what you do there.
Sure. So Harman is a long-standing company. We have quite a bit of the market in terms of branded audio, but we do more than just branded audio. I myself am honored to lead our product team in car audio, so that's most of the context I'm going to give you today. But
Great.
Harman also provides IVI systems and things like safety systems, ADAS systems, and connectivity systems. Like I said, though, I'm more or less focused on car audio. So that's where I've got my area of expertise and probably most of the insight I can provide.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Jill's tired of me talking about premium audio, but we have driven so many cars lately with excellent audio systems, and it'll be good to get the impressions of someone who actually knows what's going on in this market. Tell us a little bit about premium audio and why there seems to be more emphasis on it in cars now than there was, say, 10 years ago.
Yeah, so there's interesting, I would say, sort of bimodal trend happening in the industry. The industry itself is always seeking better and better performance in what we would consider to be standard audio rendition and fidelity, but at the same time, that better and better performance is sort of being commoditized to some extent because we have all these new features coming in terms of hyper-personalization, the ability to take a system and tune it to yourself, or to have prompts just for you, or to be able to bring in devices and connect and use all of your own source material. So some things that or even say in-car communication, these are features that maybe traditionally we haven't associated with just the fidelity of the sound system, how good it sounds, and more associated with the overall experience in the car. So we see this ever ratcheting up expectation on the baseline performance of the system, and that's where brands like AKG, Harman Kardon, some of other Harman's brands come in, and I've always played in that arena. And now we're also starting to see this other trend of really bringing in the rest of the use cases that are adjacent, things like communication, again, prompts, things that happen in the vehicle, hearing things that are happening in the vehicle, and being able to do that while enjoying that audio experience. This is really our focus moving forward, is how do we merge those two things together so we maintain fidelity, rendition, and overall resolution on the audio, and still provide these additional features people are looking for as that system becomes more and more important, not just for the audio, but the other features it provides.
One of the things that has stopped happening almost entirely, I think, is that people put in a new stereo themselves when they get a car. That isn't really something that consumers can do easily anymore, is it?
It's not as easy as it once was. I'll share a little secret of mine. I was an installer, I was a tuner for a long time, so I still like to go and put systems into the vehicles that I buy, but I will tell you that it's kind of gone are the days where you can just pull a head unit out and stick another head unit in with the same function. Right now we have a head unit that's integrated with all kinds of other features in the vehicle, and that's I think partially by design, but it's also just really a tribute to how complicated the overall information flow is in the systems now. I mean, navigation's kind of par for the course, and you can get that in an aftermarket system, but now that's integrated with a lot of times a display in your instrument cluster, and then it's also integrated with all the nav prompts and all of the chimes. And even some of the HVAC, and then we get into some of the other features that aren't even really part of the audio system that show up on the front display that may or may not be processed in that same unit. So now we see that, as you've noted, you can't just yank out a head unit and put another one in. So that's really what we're trying to do, is create audio systems where you can bring in features, you can personalize it, and you can actually maybe even bring in branded audio where you didn't have it before to allow upgrades and still allow personalization, but actually without people having to go and do a full hard upgrade. Although I will say Harman has a product called Ready Upgrade that we introduced a couple of years ago that does allow that. It actually creates a common hardware platform to allow a plug and play, so that dealers can actually replace that. It's not something you go to an aftermarket store and buy. It's something that maybe on a second lease, or a customer that didn't buy an original feature can come into a dealer and have that swapped out. And then from a car audio perspective, we can add features to that. So it's a little bit of a shift in the paradigm to keep up with all that information flow and all those features flowing around, but still allow that personalization.
Now, David, I've wanted to ask you specifically, even though I didn't know your name, a question now for like 10 years. And I've finally gotten you to a place where I can get this answered. Harman manages a huge portfolio of pretty high-quality brand names, some of which you own and some of which you license for other companies, I believe. But they're a big deal. Like you've got AKG, Infinity, JBL, Lexicon, Mark Levinson. We mentioned Revel earlier. How does this work? You guys work with a manufacturer that wants to license the brand for a particular product, and then do you work with them to establish how that system is integrated and at what level it is? Like, obviously you want to keep AKG premium to, say, JBL. How is it determined that some brand is more is placed better than others in a particular product?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So you've covered a lot of ground there. I'm going to try and answer as succinctly as possible, and then you can tell me if I'm answering your question. So we have a certain number of brands inside Harman, as you said before: AKG, Harman Kardon, Infinity, JBL, Lexicon, Mark Levinson, Revel. And then we have a couple that we license. Bang & Olufsen and Bowers & Wilkins are a couple. And within, let's say, the general public context or even the consumer context, they all have personas, and they kind of have a strata in the consumer sense, where JBL and what they stand for is slightly different. So JBL is more party, live sound, and very exciting, where AKG is a little bit more technical, a little bit more towards the studio. Revel's more refined and warm and kind of has that higher end luxury flavor to it. And the rest are somewhere in between or even maybe slightly above in the case of Mark Levinson. The point I'm making is there's a persona that comes into the conversation. And as that persona comes into the conversation and we're working with, let's say, an OEM manufacturer, we try and bring that brand persona forward and try and address whatever the pain point is at the manufacturer in conjunction with being true to the brand. So we would not necessarily try and extend the brand down below where it sits relative to the other brands that are stratified in the marketplace just to meet a customer need. We might offer them a different brand or offer them a strategy of brand. So it really starts with what is the brand persona that people understand that they know about or that's in the market now? What does that brand stand for? And then how do we match that up to systems in vehicles that are true to that brand and they're extensible to the extent that brand can flex? And when we hit the hard line where that brand just doesn't go any lower or that brand just can't extend any higher, we generally look to find a different brand to solve that problem.
So stratify a couple of these for me. You say that you have Bang Olufsen and Harman Kardon.
Bowers and Wilkins? Yep,
I'm sorry, thank you. Yes, Bowers and Wilkins. Which one is premium to the other?
Yeah, so it's, don't think of it as a straight scale, top to bottom. Think of it as a little bit more of a diagonal continuum where you've got brands that sit next to one another and maybe they're slightly higher, slightly lower, but they can actually occupy to some extent a similar space. For instance, Harman Kardon can extend up to quite a premium system, but it generally can't extend as high as like a Revel system does.
Okay.
But the two, if you think about it in terms of their lowest level systems, there's some overlap there. The lowest level Revel systems and the higher level Harman Kardon systems can have very similar content, but they won't have exactly the same sound characteristics. They definitely won't have the same aesthetic in the vehicle, and therefore they still address different areas of the market. So again, there's sort of if you think of it in terms of these overlapping circles like a Venn diagram, a lot of the brands will have a certain amount of overlap, but they will tend to extend a little bit above or below one another. Revel and Harman Kardon, just one example.
Is there a reason why manufacturers are pushing higher with this or constantly looking for what sounds like more premium brands? Ram, for example, now is bringing out a Klipsch audio system, and I think that's the first time that brand has been employed in a vehicle. But it seems like there's a never-ending race to go more premium with sound systems.
Well, I think it is true, and some of that comes with the same automotive expectation. For instance, you can barely buy a car without power windows now, where even 15 years ago it wasn't that uncommon.
Joe and I were just talking about that. I think it's just the idea. Yeah, the base level features just keep ratcheting up. But also I think manufacturers understand that while someone may not buy a car just because it has a certain branded audio system, they may buy a package because of that, or they may love their car more because of that. And so the stickiness of the automotive brand can actually be in part augmented by the addition of a really good audio brand, and the upselling of the packages within that vehicle line definitely are connected to selling those audio brands. So we still see it to a very large extent, those automotive manufacturers reaching a point in their vehicle life where they'll say, I need the next thing that's going to help me to bring more profitability to this vehicle. And oftentimes it's finding that next brand or finding that brand where they didn't have one before, or extending it into vehicle lines or trim levels that it wasn't before. So when Cadillac redesigned the Escalade, they decided to go with the AKG system. And I think there were two levels of AKG. One's something like 20 speaker and one's like 30 speaker. It's an outstanding system, by the way, to my ears.
Good to hear it.
When Cadillac reaches out to you and you guys say, okay, we can do this, and they start to put together a sound system in the car, do you guys have engineers that approve that system, work with them to build that system? How does that ultimately work? And if this obviously didn't happen, if Cadillac failed to meet those expectations, what happens then?
Good question. So it's actually even more of a co-creation or co-collaboration than you might have even described, in terms of, yes, we have engineers, but we actually have a whole team that doesn't just require speakers that GM then goes and finds and builds and then brings back to us. We actually either supply those parts or very carefully pick specifications that allow them to source certain ones of those parts themselves. But those are really kind of few and far between. especially with the AKG system, I believe almost every single part in that, maybe with the exception of one or two, are actually Harman parts. The amplifier, the speakers, all but maybe a couple of the smaller transducers. And that way we maintain control of the system in terms of how it sounds and also how it works together. So we actually have some software in the amplifier that helps to optimize the way the speakers work. And if you simply match those up with any speakers, you just wouldn't get that benefit. It wouldn't necessarily not work at all, but you wouldn't get the same optimization that we get. In addition, since we understand all the transducers, the main ones anyway, in that system, we very much understand how to push that system to its limit and then also what we can expect back in terms of performance. So we set, right at the beginning, at the outset, we set a system-level goal for performance, and then we develop an architecture and content around that. And then there's a certain amount of negotiation that does happen with the OEM to make sure that it's both profitable and feasible for them. But in the end, we're aiming at a performance goal, and we actually bring a lot to that table, including a lot of the hardware.
David, we're running out of time, but tell us what it is a consumer should be listening for when they test drive a car. If you care about audio, you don't know exactly what to listen for, what should they do on a test drive?
So my recommendation to anyone who cares about audio but doesn't necessarily know what they're listening for is, number one, make sure that you listen to some content that you're familiar with. It's always nice to put on a demo track, and that is a really good idea. If the system has a demo track, make sure to use that because it's a great signal. It'll give you a really good idea what the system's capable of, but they always will make a good impression. If you really want to know how well you're going to like it when you live with it, play something you know and try and play it through as clean a source as you can. Bluetooth is okay. Connecting with via Wi-Fi to something like Android Audio is a little bit better. Of course, plugging in a USB with some high-res content is the best, but that's not necessarily practical. But even listening to something with Bluetooth is always a good way to do it. Just make sure it's something that you're familiar with so you have some idea of kind of how you're used to listening to it and whether it sounds better or worse than that.
And I have a theory that anyone who plays with the tone controls is a cretin. What are your thoughts?
Well, I will say that we tune systems to generally appeal to the most people at detent settings. I will tell you that a lot of our systems provide, I would say, a limited amount of adjustment for exactly the reason you're saying, which is we don't want people to create something that does not sound good even to their own ears and then forget how they got there. So what we'll generally do is provide a little bit of adjustment. But I would say, one or two bumps up or down, part of that is actually adjusting for your own hearing and your own taste, and that's totally fine. What we're starting to do now, which you'll see with some of our newer systems, ReadyTune being one of them, is we can actually adapt that to your hearing so that you can still choose based on your taste, but now we're correcting a little bit for your hearing as well, and that maybe even avoids people having to set and maybe guess at some of those tone controls.
I'm asking you to pick a favorite child now, but do you have a favorite system out there that you like, or a couple of?
Well, I do, but it's not necessarily because they're the best system. It's because they're the ones that are closest to my heart. So I was a program manager before I was in the position I'm in now, and I actually helped launch the Revel and B&O systems. And the Revel systems I still think stand out really, really well. I know the AKG systems technically sound a bit better, and they rate a little bit higher, and I'm not going to take anything away from that. I've heard great systems from our other brands too. But for my own personal taste, Revel is what I actually have in my house, and it's what I helped to launch, so it's closest to my heart. Really
cool. David, where can people find out more about what you guys do at Harman?
Well, if you go to Harman Kardon, just Harman.com, you'll end up getting led on a path into our brands. You can actually look at the brands by brand. You can also go to places like JBL.com, MarkLevinson.com. It'll actually lead you into sites that you can then kind of seek and discover.
Cool. David, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Likewise. Nice to meet you both, and have a great day.
You too. That was David Schneider of Harman International. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, it's quiz time.
Questions or comments?
Drop us a line at carstuff@consumerguide.com.
That's carstuff@consumerguide.com. Welcome back to the Car Stuff Podcast.
All right, we're back. This is the Car Stuff Podcast. She's Jill, I'm Tom. It's quiz time. But first, Jill, I apologize for all the audio talk since you don't actually care that much.
Well, I care, but I just, music has always just been background noise for me, and I'm not, I don't have the ear for it. I'm not completely tone deaf, but I'm kind of tone deaf. So I actually learned a lot during that discussion, but I apologize. I didn't have much to contribute.
I learned a lot, too, because I really thought to some extent Harman was kind of a rubber stamp.
Okay.
Like they maintained the brands and they had standards for the brands, but I didn't think they did that much. I didn't think they integrated that much with the manufacturer. So actually, I feel much better about Harman now.
Okay. That's good.
And also, this makes me a fairly poor journalist because I should have known this stuff going in, right? I probably should have done some sort of research.
Well, maybe. Maybe.
Journalist.
You?
I didn't do that.
You didn't. But no, I mean, I thought that was a great conversation. And my husband is the audiophile in this relationship. And so he will always be the one who's like, oh my God, that's amazing.
What does he listen to?
He listens to clarity of sound, and so and again, I with the Macintosh system, and I feel like it was we were in the Jeep Wagoneer, and he was waxing poetic about this system, and then of course as soon as I try and get him on camera, he's like, "It's good," but when I was asking him questions and trying to get him to extrapolate, he cranked the sound up, and he was like, "There's no He's like, there's no distortion. I'm like, what? Because I can't hear him over the sound. But like when you crank the sound up and there's no distortion there's no
tonal clarity.
Yeah, tonal clarity.
You want space between the different sounds.
And
muddy mid-range. And I'm afraid to talk about this because I'm not an audiophile and I don't know the language of audiophiles. So I don't want to sound silly. But that I probably agree with your husband, and that clarity is a really good thing. You want to be able to hear things. And I listen to a lot of mid-50s into 60s American jazz. Right. And that clarity really makes that better. But what kind of music does your husband listen to?
Oh, he has horrible music taste. But then again, like I said, he tells me I have the musical taste of a 13-year-old boy. So we're always at odds. But he likes classic rock and 80s stuff. Yeah.
Okay. So I'm not on the same page with them there.
Yeah.
I mean, I lived in the 80s and I love all 80s stuff, but whatever. Okay. So there you have it.
Yeah. So a great conversation, tonal clarity. I learned something.
Yeah. So there you have it. You do social media stuff.
I do. So before we move on to the quiz, you can find me on TikTok, Instagram, Post, Threads, LinkedIn, Facebook, all the places. Actually, unfortunately, yes, I do. I you know what? I have not been to my MySpace page in like years.
AOL?
But I did have
AOL?
one. Yes. Actually, that was the very first email I had when I was in grade school.
I think AOL
kept
just shut me down.
I kept my email
address.
I haven't tried
to get back in there.
Because it's my junk email. And so whenever like you go to a website and they want you to put an email in, I put that one in.
I deeply regret that we let my wife's AOL address disappear. My wife, she's white, but she's part black and has extraordinarily curly hair. Okay. That gets curlier when it gets humid out. And when we were setting up AOL in our funnier, freer flowing days, I set her up an AOL account called White Uhura, which I'm sad we lost.
Okay. Okay, so Jill Ciminillo, moving on, is where you can find me on all of the social media.
Your hair is very straight, so that wouldn't work for you.
Mostly straight, yes. No, it would not work for me.
No. So, White Uhura at AOL.com. Someone should just send her an email and just see where it goes. Yeah. Yeah. Probably someone else lucky got that.
Yeah, or they just discontinued it.
My daughter, by the way, coincidentally, huge Uhura fan.
Okay.
So she has a T-shirt of Uhura wielding a knife. Okay. Very, very cool T-shirt.
Okay. I'll just nod and smile at that. I don't know who that is. I'll be honest with you.
Well, wait. You don't know who Uhura is?
No, I do not.
I'm just going to pause. I'm going to let that sink in, and I'm going to let our audience sink that in, and then we're going to move on. Okay. All right, Uhura.
How do you spell it?
I don't remember.
You're not helpful, because I can't Google that now.
You can. And you'll get close.
All right.
All right, it's quiz time, Joe.
Okay.
Car Stuff Podcast number 211, though it's probably not the 211th.
Okay.
Fake concept cars. Are you ready?
No.
I'm going to give you two concept cars. Okay. All you have to do is tell me which one is fake. Which one is
the fake? Okay.
Yeah, it's really simple.
That is not simple.
Here are the rules. You need to get 3 total, 5 regular questions, 1 bonus question. Today's bonus question, right up your experience alley. Yeah, it's a good one. You ready?
Yeah, the bonus question is about running then?
No, it's not. It's
is not up my alley then.
It's about fishing.
Okay.
All right, ready? Question 1. We have to go quick today. We only got about 11 minutes left. The Saturn Curve or the Saturn Delta? One is fake. Concept car. Delta is the fake. Woo! Very good. You're on the board. In 2004 in Detroit, the Saturn Curve debuted. It was one of 2 concepts that would be a harbinger of the sky.
Okay,
with
yep.
the Saturn Sky. So this was a coupe. The Sky concept was a convertible.
Yep.
They went with the convertible.
Okay, yeah,
All right.
which was on the same platform as the Pontiac Solstice.
That's right, the Kappa platform. All right, very good. 1 point. The Toyota Pod or the Toyota Delphi?
Okay, neither of those are ringing any bells for me. So Pod versus Delphi.
Yes.
Pod sounds like something Toyota would do for like their mobility things. So I'm going to say Delphi is not real.
You are absolutely correct. Yeah, the Pod was a mobility thing. It was kind of an interior exercise. 2001 Tokyo Auto Show. You were 2 for 2.
And that was 2001?
2001.
That was even before I started writing about cars.
Yep. All right, ready? You're 2 for 2.
Okay.
The Jeep Wildfire or the Jeep Wagoneer 2000?
Well, I mean, we know they have the Jeep Wagoneer, but the question is, do they have a Wagoneer 2000?
That is the question.
And I have to tell you, whenever I hear that, like I always think of Conan O'Brien in the year 2000. No? Nothing? Okay. So Wagoneer 2000, or what was the other one? Wildfire?
Wildfire.
Which is the fake?
Uh-huh.
I'm gonna say the Wagoneer 2000 is the fake.
No, that's real. It was the Jeep Wagoneer 2000. It debuted at the 1991 Detroit Auto Show, and it was very, very ugly. It was a weird aero exercise. It was off. It was just sort of off base for Jeep.
Okay.
Very strange. People want to check it out. I have links to all these because I've written about all these cars. So I will include those in our Facebook coverage of this.
Okay, and also
later
in the show
today.
notes.
Yes. But the Wagoneer 2000, ugly.
Okay.
Jeep has done so many cool concept cars that this one was kind of a bummer. All right, the Plymouth Pronto or the Plymouth Virtuoso?
Virtuoso doesn't seem very Plymouthy, but Plymouth pretty much died before I started writing about cars, so I don't know much about that brand.
I learned to drive in a Plymouth.
So you said Virtuoso or...
Pronto.
I like the... What is it? The
alliteration?
plosive P's
Plymouth
that come
Pronto?
with Plymouth Pronto.
Yeah.
Which means it's probably not that. I'm like going to logic my way out of this. Or into it. I don't know.
I know you still need one more.
I know.
And we're coming up to a question about fishing.
Great. Instinct. What is my instinct here? So, like I said, I like the plosiveness of Plymouth Pronto, but I'm gonna say that's the fake.
No, it was the Virtuoso.
Okay.
The Pronto, 1997 Detroit Auto Show, was a styling harbinger of the PT Cruiser. So that ended up being what it was. But yeah, it's actually kind of an interesting looking car.
Okay.
All right, you're 2 for 4. You need to get one more.
Eek.
2 chances. The Dodge Kahuna or the Dodge Banhero?
I remember an automaker did a Kahuna, but was it Dodge? I think the Kahuna is real and the other one is fake.
You are correct. The Kahuna, kind of a minivan exercise, but it had 4 doors, but it was a very Hawaii-looking thing.
Right.
With woody trim and
Surfboards
surfboards.
yeah, okay.
Actually really cool.
Okay.
It was a really cool concept. I think it was very popular. That was at the 2003 Detroit Auto Show. You have won.
Whee!
You got your 3.
Yes.
And now we have the bonus question because we always do the bonus question. Jill salmon season kicks off in April in the Chicago area with the Coho Run.
Okay.
But you knew that.
Yes, totally knew that.
I don't know what that means, but I did check into the fine catalog of salmon lures at Max Lure and Tackle.
Okay.
That's Mac, M-A-C-K''S, Max.
Okay.
You need to tell me which of the following is not a salmon lure available from Max. Are you ready?
Okay. No, I'm not ready, but go for it.
All right. The Wiggle Hoochie for $7.99.
Okay.
The Sledgehammer for $9.49. The Sockeye Squidder for $6.19, or the Smelt Melter for $9.99. You're big into fishing.
I used to go fishing when I was a kid with my uncle.
Did you really?
I did.
Oh, so this should be easy for
I
you.
actually really enjoyed fishing with my uncle. He had a pontoon boat.
Did he have a Wiggle Hoochie
I'm sure he had something
in his tackle box?
in his tackle box. Yeah. But no, I enjoyed fishing with him. I thought that was very fun, but I have not been fishing in my adult life.
You're going to need an answer.
I know. I still have 7 minutes. I could draw this out.
6 minutes, yeah. The music does make the stalling more...
tolerable?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Randy chose excellent music.
He did. What was the last one?
The Smelt Melter.
Yeah, that sounds wrong to me. I'm going to say that.
That is wrong. So you got the bonus question. That's 4 points for you. Very nice. Wiggle Hoochie, Sledgehammer, and Sockeye Squitter, all real.
Okay.
And they seem like bargains. They're all under $10.
Well,
There's pictures.
You're going to have to post pictures now.
Or I could just post a link, although that seems weird.
It does seem
It
weird.
also seemed like a link that will go dead pretty soon.
Probably.
Yeah, like then you just end up with a 404 error.
Yeah, no smelt melter there.
Right. We were going to talk a little bit about the Ram 1500 Classic.
Yes.
And it's crazy for a lot of reasons.
Yes.
It is a truck sold parallel to the Ram. Ram never talks to the media about it.
No.
But there it is, and it's in showrooms with Ram pickups. Mm-hmm. But according to an article today in Automotive News, or actually I think it came up last week, it sells for as much as $9,000 less than the current generation of new Ram pickups. So they have this alternative in the showroom. Mm-hmm. Here's the thing about that. They're older. They have updated the electronics.
Right.
But they did help Ram outsell Chevy in pickups a couple of years ago, which was interesting. But it looks like this is the end of the run for that truck.
Yeah.
This year.
And it's kind of unfortunate because, I mean, if you know a truck guy or if you're a truck guy, most of the truck guys want low-tech, like, not high-end options. And a lot of, like, the true truck guys are really upset with this trend of luxury trucks and, you know, the ultimate high-end stuff.
Here's a question about it. You're talking about real truck guys. But let's talk about Texas, for example, where everyone drives a pickup truck. Mm-hmm. Texas is crazy. Mm-hmm. And in fact, what the Lone Star? Is that the Dodge, the Ram that they sell down there? It's the Longhorn in every other market.
Yeah,
but in
and then
Texas,
it's the Lone Star down there. Yeah.
So they actually have a special trim level for
in
Texas. So when we talk about real truck guys, what percent of the truck buying market are we actually talking about?
You know what? Probably not that big,
because
frankly.
people are buying this expensive stuff.
People are buying, well, and that's why the expensive stuff keeps coming out. But so, you know, my other gig with Pickup Truck Plus SUV Talk, a day does not go by where somebody doesn't bemoan the fact that, you know, you can't get crank windows or, you know, a manual transmission in a truck anymore.
Some of that bemoaning, if that's a word.
Bemoaning.
And if you spell it with like an apostrophe and no G, bemoaning. It sounds like a blues song.
It kind of does.
Some of that bemoaning is just people who can't afford a pickup.
Well, and pickup truck prices are
ridiculous.
Crazy. They're crazy.
Yes, they're very high.
But I can see why the Ram Classic would continue to do well because it's, you know, fairly low tech and fairly old school, even though they've updated, you know, to the Uconnect 5. But it's still, you know, an old school truck. It
is, and it's a very interesting thing for a manufacturer to do. And what a manufacturer needs to do is have a pickup truck factory available to do this in.
Yeah,
because these are not coming down the same line. The new Ram is being built in Sterling Heights, and I think the old one was being built in Warren. I think that's the division of manufacturing. But at any rate, they're not going to update the old truck to work with the new 6-cylinder engine.
Correct.
That's just too much money to spend on something. And I think they sold like 48,000 of the classics last year. Also really cool, and I didn't know this, and I've never seen one. They sell a version of the Ram 1500 Classic, the old truck, called the Warlock.
Yes.
Never seen this.
Yeah.
I want to see that. It's like a version of the Revel.
Yeah.
Which is very popular.
But available on the classic truck.
Yeah. So that's crazy. That seems like a thing I need to test drive.
All right. We will reach out to Stellantis after this call and ask for a Ram 1500 Classic Warlock.
There's no reason why they would accommodate that request.
That is correct. I don't think a Ram Classic has ever been in the test fleet.
No. All right. That's all I got. You got any stuff going on?
No, I mean, just catching up from post-travel. So next week we'll be able to talk about the Ford Ranger and the Hyundai Santa Fe.
That's
both
big
of
stuff.
Which I drove last week.
Santa Fe, crazy looking. Mm-hmm. Ads running now. Mm-hmm. Are those on sale yet?
It is.
Wow. Okay. So it's interesting that they went to the public before the.
Yep.
That happens a lot.
It does.
And speaking of that, when does the Nautilus go on sale?
I think imminently.
Okay. So
if
soon.
they are not already on sale, I think that it's coming soon.
All right. Well, that was a show.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you to David Schneider of Harman International for joining us today. Thank you, Jill. Thank you to producer Randy. That's the stuff.
Yes, and I had a mint donut.
You had the mint donut. All right.
I did.
Let's talk more about cars again.
Next week, Randy's
Next
really
week.
trying to push us out the door.
He wants us out of here. I want us out of here.
Remember to check us out at consumerguide.com.
The Car Stuff Podcast is produced by J-Turn Media.
To advertise on the show, please drop us a line at carstuff@consumerguide.com.